Alexander Alekhine was always known for his uncompromising, attacking style. At the New York tournament, he was determined to prove his right to a world championship match against Capablanca. And he had a great start. In the very first round, playing black, he outplayed the Englishman Frederick Yates, although not without mutual mistakes and missed opportunities in a sharp struggle. e4. e5. Knight f3. Knight c6. Bishop b5. a6. Bishop a4. d6. Castles kingside. This variation of the Steinitz defense is apparently better than an immediate d6, since after d4 white would have to reckon with the possibility of b5. Bishop b3. Knight takes d4. Knight takes d4. E takes d4, which would lead to an immediate draw. Queen takes d4. c5. Queen d5. Bishop e6. Queen c6 check. Bishop d7. Queen d5. Bishop e6 and so on. As Kotov analyzed in his time, referring to a threefold repetition. But black has a resource. c4. Bishop takes c4. B takes c4. Black is better. Castling creates an impression of some passivity here, although perhaps unfounded. The following two continuations highly deserved attention. Bishop takes c6 check. B takes c6. d4 and black faces an unpleasant choice. 1. Surrender the center, which in this case would open up brilliant prospects for white's queen bishop, for example. E takes d4. Knight takes d4. Bishop d7. Or c5. Knight f3, and if the occasion arises e4, e5. b3 in connection with bishop c1, b2 and so on, or 2. Defend the center by means of f6, which positionally would oblige them to further weaken the kingside via g7, g6, in combination with bishop f8, g7, and such obligations, which the opponent can take into account in advance, are in most cases fatal. c3. In case white wanted to disrupt black's plan, which they carried out in the actual game, for example, g6, d4, bishop d7, bishop g5 and so on. The further course of the struggle shows, however, that white has no objective reason to counteract this aspiration of black, and this is exactly where the theoretical value of the game lies. g6 at first glance, an excellent choice. Black holds the center and completes development. However, the downsides of this setup will soon become apparent. Practice shows that a premature fianchetto with an open center often leads to serious positional difficulties. c3. 2. d4 could now follow. b5. Bishop b3. Bishop g7. Bishop d5. Bishop d7. Bishop g7. d4. Bishop d7. Bishop g5. Underlying this seemingly unnatural move is a concrete idea to force black to develop the knight to e7, where it will be less active. But after bishop e3, knight f6, knight bd2, castles kingside, black would finally overcome their opening difficulties. Knight ge7. In case of knight f6, knight bd2, there would already be a threat of bishop takes c6 followed by d takes e5. But even after the text move, white firmly retains the opening advantage. D takes e5 reduces the scope of the fianchettoed bishop and at an opportune moment opens the D file as a base for further operations. D takes e5. Queen d3. This move, which is essentially a logical consequence of the previous one, was also unfairly criticized. It prevents black from castling immediately. Whereas after, for example, Queen e2, black could calmly castle. Castles kingside. Rook d1. Queen e8 and so on. h6. In case of the immediate. Castles kingside. Bishop takes c6. B takes c6. Rook d1. Bishop e6. Queen e2. Queen e8. White has a more pleasant position. Bishop e3. Bishop g4. Relatively better than. Castles kingside to which white could profitably play. Bishop c5. Bishop g4. Queen e3. Queen e2. It goes without saying that trading queens would clearly contradict white's entire opening setup, since it is exactly the passive position of the black queen on the open D file that should have allowed them to secure a positional advantage, albeit a slight one. Castles kingside. Knight bd2 completely inconsistent. With the move Bishop c5, which is even better than an immediate Rook d1, white could have brilliantly justified their previous play and put the opponent in a very cramped position, which would have led, at the very least, to a deterioration of black's pawn structure. The harmless developing move made by white, on the contrary, surprisingly leads them to a worse position that is difficult to equalize, as Alexander Kotov wrote in his book. I dare to dispute that white has a worse position after knight bd2. f5 deserves attention. b6. h3. Bishop h5. Bishop b3 check. Deserves attention. Bishop c5. F takes e4. Queen takes e4. Rook f4. Queen c2. e4. King h8. But not. King h7 due to. E takes f5. G takes f5. Knight g5 check. King g6. g4 and white can still fish in troubled waters. E takes f5. In the classical commentaries of those years, particularly by Alexander Kotov, this plan was considered the only way to avoid complete positional suffocation. However, modern engines are ruthless. They show that the move bishop c5 would be much stronger, retaining the advantage. G takes f5. g4. F takes g4. Knight e1. This very maneuver, however, is refuted by an accurately calculated counter-combination, as a result of which black gains an extra pawn. More precise was knight h2, after which, however, black, by playing knight e7, d5, e3, would secure at least the advantage of the two bishops. Knight d5. Erroneous is g takes h3. Queen takes h5. Knight f5. Queen takes h3. H takes g4. Or bishop takes d5. Queen takes d5. H takes g4. Bishop g6. Queen c4. Rook ad 8 with a significantly better game. Knight takes e3. F takes e3. Queen g5. Black's pressure is palpable. Bishop e6 forced. Bishop takes g4. A tactical strike. The bishop cannot be taken. After the advance h5, black immediately wins back the piece, remaining with an extra pawn and a powerful initiative, or so it was thought in those years. However, queen takes g4. Perhaps a more interesting continuation was bishop takes g4. h5. Rook takes f8 check. Rook takes f8. Knight e4. Queen takes g4 check. Queen takes g4. H takes g4. Rook d1 with a roughly equal game. Queen takes e3 check. King h1 making room for the rook. Queen takes d2. Rook g1. Queen g5. Black is ready to return one pawn to transition the game into a winning endgame for themselves. Queen h3. After queen takes g5. H takes g5. Rook takes g5. Rook f6. Bishop d5. Rook d8. Black would effortlessly realize their material advantage. Queen f6. Bishop d5. Knight e7. Bishop e4. The move knight e7 was played so that in case of bishop takes b7, rook ab8, bishop e4, it would prevent the further development of white's attack by means of queen f4. But not rook takes b2 due to knight d3 followed by rook af1. Knight f5. Now, queen f4 would be pointless due to bishop takes b7 followed by knight e1, d3 and so on. Knight f3. After this mistake, the struggle ends prematurely. Whereas Knight d3 would still pose a difficult problem for black, as it is impossible to play either Queen h4 due to Bishop takes f5, nor Knight d6 due to Rook g6. Best of all for black would then be Rook ad8 threatening Queen h4 again. Rook ad1. b6 threatening to drive the knight from its position by means of c7, c5, c4. b4. Rook d6. Rook g4. Rook g2. Queen h4. Bishop takes f5. Queen takes h3 check. Bishop takes h3. Rook f3 and so on. Friends, here is a task for you. Why did the engine's evaluation bar jump after the move before? h5. Queen takes h5 check. Queen h6. After the exchange of queens, the extra pawn would eventually decide the game. Knight d6. Bishop d5 loses a piece. Everything that follows is dictated by despair. And on. Rook g6. The struggle is ended by Knight takes e4. And on. Knight d2. Queen f4. c6. I do not know why this move was not commented on by anyone in those years, because it is a gross blunder by Alekhine, which, however, Yates himself also failed to see. Much stronger is Queen f5. Queen g3. Queen h5 check. Knight h2. Bishop f6. Rook takes g7. The correct reply to the erroneous c6 was Knight h4. C takes d5. Rook af1 retaining the initiative. King takes g7. Rook g1 check. King h8. Knight takes e5. C takes d5. Queen h5. Knight e4. Knight g6 check. King h7. Queen takes d5. Knight g3 check. White resigned. A spectacular final touch. After the forced Rook takes g3. Queen f1 check. King h2. If Rook g1 then Queen h3 mate. Rook f2 check. Rook g2. Rook takes g2 check. Queen takes g2. Queen takes g2 check. King takes g2. King takes g6. Black in any case remains with an extra rook and easily brings the game to victory. Even better is Queen c8. Knight g2. Queen f5.